If at this point you have not completed the RTL, because the RTL sets up the learning target, please make sure to go back, complete the RTL, and then come back to the pre-recorded video. Here we go. I will be able to explain why diverse groups chose to participate or did not participate in labor unions at the start of the progressive era. So obviously our new terms here are probably going to be labor unions and progressive era. Let's just back up for a second and recap some of those effects you probably listed in your RTL. So in your RTL, it was asking you about some of the challenges that factory workers faced during industrialization. You might have listed that some of the challenges included low pay, child labor might have been a challenge that you listed, long hours. We know that workers in factories were forced to work very long hours. We know, especially from our study of the jungle, those meat factories are incredibly unsanitary. We also know from our different days when we've done stations looking at pictures of factory workers that there were tons of injuries. We've also seen stories of injury in those different sources that we've been reading from factory workers during industrialization. So we have all these negative working conditions that result from industrialization. We are now getting to the point in the unit where we've studied all the problems associated with industrialization. We've studied the problems. Now we're getting to the point in the unit where we need to start thinking about solutions. Those solutions happen during the progressive era. So let's break down this term because it is the second half of our unit title. Remember, our unit is called Industrialization and the Progressive Era. We've studied industrialization and all of its effects, especially on workers. But we haven't gotten to the part of the unit where we talk about the progressive era yet. So let's break down this term. First of all, that word era just means time period. Time period. The progressive era is the time period that follows industrialization. And draw an arrow. The progressive era comes right after industrialization. So if we can call industrialization like 1890 to 1910, progressive era is around 1910, about the 1930s. I'm just gonna tilt this camera down a little bit, guys. Okay, so we know that era just means time period. We know the progressive era happens after industrialization. Now let's look at this word progressive. Within the word progressive, we probably see the word progress. Progress simply means change. So put it together. If progress means change, era means time period, a progressive era simply means a time period of a lot of change. Specifically, these changes that happen during the progressive era are changes to fix the problems that happened during industrialization. So if you want to think about it in a really simple way, think of industrialization as being the problem. And progressive era is when we find solutions. Industrialization creates the problems. Now we're in the progressive era, the time period where we find solutions to all those problems. We've got another new term in this learning target, labor unions. I'm going to pause the video just so I can clear off my whiteboard really quick. Okay, so our other new term in here is labor unions. We've now covered the progressive era, but we need to talk about this new term for us, labor unions. We can break this term labor union down into its parts. Let's start with labor. The word labor literally means work. Now let's look at the word union. Union might sound like the words unity, unified, unite. All of these words are about togetherness. Togetherness. All of these words that relate to that term union are about togetherness. If you want to think of labor unions as work, as labor togetherness, that will probably help you with its definition. A union is a group of workers, that come together to fight for better working conditions. We know that workers during industrialization face a number of challenging working conditions. Labor unions were groups of workers that came together to fight for better working conditions. So now I have a quick video I'd like to show you that gives you a good visual of what happens when workers form a labor union. Then we're going to quickly come back, think big picture, what exactly are we doing today, and go right into the assignment description. So here's a video to give you a quick visual of what workers do when they form a labor union.
A long time ago, when our great country was just being built, there were the haves and the have-nots. The haves owned companies and industries, and they relied on their workers to, well, do the hard work. The workers were proud of what they did. They worked hard every day. But they watched the companies and the haves get richer and richer while they got poorer or stayed the same. They had to work for as long as their bosses told them to work. They didn't get overtime pay, they didn't get to take a break, and there was no guarantee they would be safe at work. If they got hurt or even killed, the company didn't have to do anything about it. The workers decided to do something about it, but it was hard. The companies could just fire them. So the workers joined in unity. Together, they had a voice. Together, they could demand things like fair wage, safe working conditions, an end to child labor, sick leave, family leave, pensions. Together, labor unions created something in between the haves and the have-nots, the middle class. The middle class is very important. It allows people to make better lives for themselves, and the middle class has money to spend. And when they buy things, that money goes back into our economy, and it makes America strong.
Okay, so I know that video was a little corny, but it does give us a picture of what workers do when they form a labor union. If we're thinking about our learning target bigger picture today, now that we've gone over our new terms, labor union and progressive era, we want to figure out why diverse groups, different groups of people, not just white men, but white women, women of color, Chinese laborers, why different groups chose to participate, chose to join labor unions. Sorry guys, why diverse groups, why different groups of people chose to join labor unions, chose to participate in labor unions, or why diverse groups chose not to participate, why they didn't join labor unions. Labor unions on the surface look like a really good thing, and they do a lot of really important stuff for workers. But when we're doing our activity today, we might find that labor unions weren't always open to all workers. Perhaps they were only beneficial or only open to certain types of workers. Our job today is to figure out why different groups of people chose to join labor unions, chose to participate in labor unions, or not. So let's get to the assignment for today. I'm going to screen share now. So at this point, you should already be on your daily packet for today. Your RTL should be complete. What you're completing today is your perspectives on the labor union's graphic organizer. There are 3 perspectives that you're going to read today. Each perspective is an interview with a worker during the time period of industrialization. And in these interviews, they explain why they choose to join a labor union or not. So here's what you're going to do. First, you're going to read the attached documents that begin on the 3rd page. You'll notice that there are 3 documents, 3 perspectives. Document A, women workers in the unions. Document B, Chinese immigrants in the unions. Document C, African Americans in the unions. We've got 3 different perspectives that you're reading today. Here's what you need to do. There are 3 columns that you need to fill out for each perspective. So after reading document A, women workers in the unions, I'm going to fill in the document A row. In that first column, the actions column, I'm going to check off which of the following actions would a person from your perspective support. So I'm going to check off the actions that I believe this person would support. Because we're doing this on a computer and you can't just put an X in the box, what you can do is simply highlight or underline whichever actions you believe a person in this perspective would support. You can select multiple actions, or you might choose to select no actions. You might think that a person, based on the evidence in your perspective, would simply accept poor working conditions. If that's the case, then that's the case. Then you're going to go to your second column, challenges. According to your document, what challenges did each group face? So after reading document A about women workers in the unions, you're going to explain, based on the evidence in the document, what challenges women workers in unions faced. Finally, you're going to go to your explanation column, and you have to answer the question, which is currently highlighted. Why would workers in each situation choose to take certain actions but not others? For example, why would someone writing from a certain perspective go on strike but not join a protest? Explain in 2 to 4 sentences. So in this third column, you want to be thinking about the actions that you chose. If you decided that a person in a particular perspective would simply accept poor working conditions, in that third column, you must explain why. If you have any questions, please come to office hours today, 2:20 to 3:10 like usual. Thanks, guys.